Good morning, Nigeria. Welcome to Daybreak and Trust Television, reaching you from the nation's capital right here in Abuja. It's Daybreak, the show that brings you analysis and perspectives on all issues of national concern, just to keep you informed so that you make informed decisions as well. My name is Ayuba Ilya. Of course, I'm not alone. Good morning, Stella.
Good morning, Ayuba, and good morning, Nigerians. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, well, the days are going quite fast.
Yes.
This is 8th of November already. We are counting about 3 weeks now before the end of November.
When was January? Wasn't it just like, how many days ago?
You know, just
no,
like yesterday.
Here already.
You know, some people say just like yesterday,
Honestly.
and we're here already. We're counting down to the end of the year 2022. A lot of us thought maybe 2022, where are we going to be, especially with the COVID-19 experience and everything.
Yeah.
But here we are. It's almost 2 years after COVID. Life is picking up gradually. The world is still yet to recover
and it would have
fully.
picked up faster if not for the Ukraine-Russia war.
Yeah, that too is impacting. And of course, the issue of climate change, the impacts are becoming more glaring every day, you know, as we see it. The floods, the droughts, famine, you know, in different parts of the world. You know, Africa seems to be at the front line of it.
Exactly, and that is why I do hope that agreements reached, decisions taken at the COP27 currently ongoing, actually translate into something.
Yes,
you know, not just to sit down and talk.
Yes,
like,
you know, just go beyond the talk.
Exactly.
And let's see action, more action, and not just the talk and the conference and the tea and everything. Anyway, let's move on. Today's headline goes this way. Federal government announces resumption of Abuja-Kaduna train service.
Soldiers gun down terrorists harvesting crops in Zamfara.
Ekwere Madu to spend Christmas, New Year in prison as court fixes January 31 for trial.
Now let's take a look at the details. The federal government has announced that the train services on the Abuja-Kaduna rail line are set to return this month. Muazu Sambo, Minister of Transportation, made the announcement on Monday in Abuja while giving the scorecard of his ministry. According to Sambo, adequate security has been put in place to ensure the safety of passengers. He said the ministry has learned enough lessons from the attack in March, which claimed the lives of several passengers, leading to the suspension of train service on the Kaduna-Abuja route. The minister, however, did not give any specific date for the resumption. Recall that rail services along the route was shut down following a terrorist attack on the train and its passengers on March 28.
All right, now on security matters, the troops of the Nigerian military attached to the Operation Hadarin Daji have neutralized some terrorists at Yarteshar village in Maru local government area of Zamfara state. The terrorists were reportedly killed while they were trying to harvest farmers' produce in the village. The military personnel also killed a notorious bandit kingpin identified as Bada, who was reported to have attacked the village market and killed some farmers before he started harvesting their produce. The Director, Defense Media Operations, Major General Musa Damadami, who disclosed this in a statement issued on Monday morning, explained that the troops recovered one motorcycle, some weapons and other valuables from the adversaries.
Now, the Central Criminal Court in London, the United Kingdom, has adjourned the trial of Deputy Senate President Ekwere Madu to January 31st, 2023. The bailiff agreed that arguments will be heard on the 16th or 19th of December 2022 before the commencement of the trial in January. Though he was absent from court on Monday, his wife was released on bail in July, and Sonia, their daughter, were present in the court. Ekwere Madu is facing charges of alleged organ harvesting. He and his wife Beatrice were arrested on June 23 and charged with conspiracy to traffic in persons for organ harvesting in violation of the Modern Slavery Act 2015.
All right, so let's take a look at some of the packages we have for you this morning. Now, since the National Minimum Wage Bill was signed into law for implementation nearly 5 years ago, civil servants in Kano State say that their fortunes have not changed for the better, looking up to the federal government for another review in the next 1 year. In this report, Trust TV correspondent Idris Jibrin reports that workers say that the current high cost of living is making it difficult for the minimum wage to sustain an average worker. Take a look.
Babangida Inwa is a civil servant in Kano who earns 30,600 naira a month. But with the high cost of living eating deep into his earning, he's wondering if civil service will continue to be his way forward. Over the last 5 days, Babangida says he has been waiting for salary to buy the little he could for his family. But the salary has not come yet. My salary is 30,000 naira. Once I buy 1 bag of rice, it's finished. Therefore, other things like children's health, school fees, nothing for that. Not only 1 bag of rice. Even if I'm buying maize, 30,000 naira will not buy 2 bags of maize for me, which means the whole salary cannot sustain me. According to Workers' Union in Kano, most civil servants are still suffering despite the implementation of the national minimum wage. The price of food items have gone high, which makes it even difficult for low salary earners to meet up with the demands of their families, even with the 30,000 naira minimum wage.
How much is a bag of rice presently? I think is if you buy even a bag of rice, it can split even the 30,000. So that is why he said government is looking at ways where it can enhance the salary of Nigerian workers. But even if that is not done, I think from 2019 to date is almost 4 years. So if you see that by next year, the new national minimum wage law provides that the minimum wage of this country should also be reviewed according to the provision of the law.
Meanwhile, workers say that despite the minimum wage, some local government areas in Kano are yet to fully implement it, another problem creating tension among government workers.
The minimum wage is not fully implemented, especially at the local governments. We have been discussing with the labor and the government cycle on how to complete the minimum wage. The minimum wage at the state workers is complete, but those at the local government is halfway implemented. But still we are discussing with the state government to make it complete as they did it at the state.
While the national minimum wage bill provides that the worker's salary be reviewed after each 5 years, workers in Kano hopes that the review in about 1 year from now will help bring relief to their long years of hardship. Idris Jubrin, Trust TV News, Kano.
Thank you, Idris, for that report. Now, the Kano to Maradi Trans-Saharan Rail Line project is conceived to boost trade relations between Nigeria and the landlocked African country. Nigeria's Minister of Transportation, Muazu Sambo, made the clarification at a news conference to showcase the scorecard of the administration, just as it decried lack of formal treaty between the countries to leverage opportunities provided by the multi-billion naira project. Trust TV's Sheffield Suleiman brings us the report.
While assuring the restoration of the suspended Abuja-Kaduna shuttle service before the end of this month, the Minister of Transport told newsmen that comprehensive plan has been made to guarantee a 24-hour surveillance of the rail lines to ensure safety of travelers.
The minister should be able to sit in his office and look at the rail corridor and see what is happening there. The president should be able to do that. The Director General of the SSS should be able to do that, and so on, and all other security agencies. These are the measures we have put in place.
Unprecedented rail modernization, including the Trans-Saharan Kano to Maradi. He says the project, amongst others, will boost the nation's economy and facilitate trade relations between Nigeria and others up to Europe if completed.
Niger is supposed to continue from Maradi up to its border. The next country, which is I think Mali, will take up, and then Algeria will take its own. And before you know it, you can move your cargo from Lagos to Europe by rail, and cheaply so.
Providing a sector-by-sector achievements of the Buhari administration, the Transport Minister enumerated the Deep Blue Sea amongst other projects in the maritime sector.
The President commissioned the Deep Blue project in June 2021. And we are proud today to inform Nigeria and indeed the world that since the commissioning took place, there hasn't been a single reported case of piracy in Nigeria's exclusive economic zone.
The Minister of Information and Culture, Lai Mohammed, who moderated the session, reiterated that the Buhari government has made giant strides in the area of critical infrastructure, far above any other administration. There are, however, growing concerns on the huge borrowings the government is embarking upon to realize these projects. Shafiu Suleiman, Trust TV News, Abuja.
All right. Now, the Vice-Chancellor of the University of Jos, Tanko Ishaya, says lecturers of the university haven't gone on strike but decided to teach from home because of the financial difficulties faced by them. This is coming 2 days after the members of the Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASU, issued a notice of stay at home until their withheld salaries were paid by the federal government. In an interactive session with journalists held at the university on Monday, the Vice-Chancellor said that to the best of his knowledge, best of the knowledge of the university management, the academic staff decided to teach from home and not that they had declared another strike action. Ado Musa has more on this.
The Vice-Chancellor said, soon after the National Executive Council of Academic Staff Union of University called off its prolonged strike, the university management agreed that in an event where the lecturers are not paid when academic activities resume, they could continue with their academic activities virtually using technology, adding that they had put in all plans with respect to virtual platforms in order to ensure both academic staff and students are able to engage.
Trying to ensure that the policy of no work, no pay is actually implemented. I'm appealing to government to look at the university system slightly differently from a number of perspectives. And I use this opportunity to say that the role and the responsibility of an academic is not only teaching. That is, the role of an academic is not only teaching. Perhaps we have not been saying this loud and clear, but I use this opportunity to make it very clear that as an academic, your responsibility and your letter of appointment describes three main responsibilities: teaching, research, and community engagement.
On the issue of no work, no pay, which the federal government has insisted on, the Vice-Chancellor has appealed to the federal government to reconsider its position and pay the lecturers their salaries, as the work of the academic staff was beyond teaching in classrooms, as it included research and community services, which he believed that the lecturers had engaged in even during the prolonged strike.
Because of lack of payment of salaries, academic staff can do their lectures from home using the technologies, and we have put in all the plans in place with respect to the virtual platforms in order to ensure that both academic staff and students are able to, to engage with academic staff, while studying, while delivering other lectures, tutorials, or whatever from home.
The academic staff of the university had on Sunday issued a notice directing all its members to stay at home and asked students to wait until the backlogs of their salaries were paid. Ado Musa, Trust TV News, Jos.
All right, thank you, Ado, for that report. Ayuba, a new one.
Yeah.
Stay at home?
Exactly. I mean, quite curious for me, because as far as I know, this is also another form of industrial action from what we've learned in the past. There are different kinds of ways, for you to do industrial action. But again, in this case, however, they said that they are going to be doing virtual teaching.
Well, they have also said the reason they cannot go to school is because of financial difficulties. How are they going to purchase the data and everything that they will?
Exactly. So that comes with its own cost too, isn't it?
Yeah.
So it's not going to be free. Anyways.
And the students, do they all have access to?
Exactly. For the students, I'm wondering how they will be joining. Are they going to all be converging in the classrooms and then wait for the lecturers to join virtually?
And are they going to do that for all the lectures in a particular day?
Exactly. Are they also all going to be joining from their different locations? Maybe Zoom or something? Well, you know,
they
leaves a
also
lot to
had
be desired.
a meeting till very late yesterday. So maybe by today we'll have more information on what the situation is.
Yes, and then I think that why we are here and we keep talking about this ASU thing is because of lack of sincerity, and I must say from both sides,
From
not
both
just
sides,
from government.
yeah, from both sides.
Yes, I mean, when you have an agreement, it's very important that you fulfill, you know, your part of the bargain. It's very, very critical.
Yeah. All right, on to other stories. The Nigeria Communications Commission, NCC, is set to put up another slot in the spectrum band for auction before the end of the year to boost the deployment of the 5th generation 5G services in parts of the country. This was part of deliberations when the management of the Media Trust Group visited the Executive Vice Chairman of the Commission, where both organizations agreed to further expand and leverage existing relationships through the engagement of additional services. Trust TV's Aisha Salihu brings us the report.
At the interface with the management of Media Trust Group and the Nigerian Communications Commission, there is a consensus that the role of media cannot be overemphasized in disseminating information to the public, as well as building partnerships for mutual benefits.
But we always use the media in order to provide information to the public. We wouldn't have been able to do it, no matter how powerful our Directorate of Public Affairs is, you know, because you have what it takes to reach out. Absolutely. We don't have that reach. Okay, so we appreciate the very, very important work, you know, the media is doing, and in particular, the very, very important work that Daily Trust is doing.
The Executive Vice Chairman of the Commission informed the Media Trust team of the first action turnout of the 5G technology, which the Commission is set to action again, with promises of substantial network improvements, higher connection speed, mobility and capacity, as well as low latency capabilities to communication services in Nigeria.
Now commercial 5G services in Lagos, as we speak. MTN has launched 5G commercial services. And we've spoken at length about the usage scenarios, ultra reliable, low latency applications, very fast. Okay? And then we talk about driverless cars, machine-to-machine control. Okay? Even though those are applications we do not expect to see, but what we have started with is the enhanced mobile broadband services. You know, I'm sure when you eventually enjoy the 5G experience, you'd be surprised at how fast, you know, you're able to, you know, access the internet as well as download a material, you know, from your internet. The speed has gone, you know, much higher than we know it, you know, of course, at affordable cost.
The deployment of the 5G technology is to act as a catalyst for smart cities in the country and a platform for the creation of jobs that support the digital economy, as stipulated by the National Policy on 5th Generation Networks. Aisha Salihu, Trust TV News, Abuja.
All right, now we'll take a short breather, and then when we return, the show continues. Please stay with us.
That's great.
Nigerians, elections are here again. Let us shun violence. Let us play the game according to the rules. Do not be a thug. Say no to violence. Let's rise and defeat violence, crime, and sabotage against the peace of our nation. Nigeria is the only country we have. We must do everything to keep it united. We must avoid any act that promotes hate and disintegration. Say no to separatist movement, terrorism, fake news, hate speech, religious bigotry, and any act that tends to divide us as a nation. Watch out for strange gatherings and suspicious movements. Restrict access to sensitive documents and data, the disclosure of which may damage national security. Educate your staff and family, particularly on measures to safeguard information and report security breaches. Apply relevant legal security guidelines to protect yourself and your neighbors. Due to misinformation and wrong choices, some idle persons resort to vices in their greed to get rich quick. They resort to kidnapping, killings for rituals, and other heinous crimes. Avoid wrong use of the social media. Before you broadcast that false message, think twice. Ask whether it will promote peace or violence. For safety at home, still be security conscious. Educate your household on safety tips. Report all suspicious movements and persons to the security agencies nearest to you. Be a good citizen. Be patriotic. To pass security information, please call 0813-222-2105, 0915-339-1309, 0908-837-3514, or send a mail to dsspr@dss.gov.ng. This message is from the Department of State Services, DSS.
When a situation where you find that look at the
not necessarily tribal or regional.
I have said that.
All right, thank you for staying with us. This is Daybreak on Trust Television. Time for us to take a look at the dailies on Daybreak right here. And we begin with the Daily Trust newspaper this morning. The lead story talks about armed groups. It says, Kwankwaso joins Obi on dialogue as Tinubu Atiku unveil strategies. You have the writers that says, all options open to Asiwaju, says Keyamo. I will tackle agitations with government of national unity, says former VP. Don't negotiate with terrorists, ex-AIG says. It's campaign gimmick, retired military officer speaking out. And that's on, all of that is on page 4 of the Daily Trust newspaper. We also have other stories. Just below the masthead, you'd find half salary. Gbajabia Mila says federal government acted on law as ASU holds emergency meeting on page 23. Nigeria's Eurobond prices rebound in fresh week, and that's on page 19. Abuja Kaduna train service to resume this month, says federal government. You'd find also beside the pictorial where you have the top contenders for the #1 seat of the land. Other stories there says 2 TikTokers bag 20 lashes to clean toilets for posting Ganduje sleeps a lot. You'd find also NCC targets more after earning 220 billion naira from 5G auction on page 19. Several killed as army youths clash in Imo. And then the story at a footnote, CJN to judges, don't betray Nigerians' trust on 2023 election matters. It also has the writer that says we are battling 600 pre-election cases. That's the INEC chairman there now speaking on page 25. These are some of the major stories on the Daily Trust newspaper.
Now let's take a look at the Punch newspaper. It has a lead story that says 2023 elections, INEC laments tough times. The first rider, flood overruns 20 INEC buildings, chairman seeks new offices. Agency grapples with 600 cases in court, wants new equipment. We also have suspense as ASU ESCO meeting runs into midnight. Low enrollment, migration, flooding hurt Ogun village schools. We also have on the Punch, LATMA can't arrest motorists on roads without signs. This is coming from a commissioner. And just beneath the pictorial, day 138, daughter in court, Ekwerimadu still imprisoned. And that's the picture of the daughter, Sonia, and the wife of the former Deputy Senate President. And just above the masthead of the Punch, we have COP27, Buhari seeks G7 support. Terror, UK wants citizens to avoid 22 states. Bauchi governor demands Atiku's apology. Still on the Punch, why North is wrong about restructuring. This is coming from Izefe. These are some of the major stories on the Punch newspaper for today.
All right. And on the Nation newspaper, the lead story talks about women, farmers, artisans, others unite for Tinubu. The writer says Marafa Eibo sure of victory for APC presidential candidate next year. You'd find above the masthead, CJN to election tribunal judges, don't be reckless. You also have COP27, UN unveils $3 billion plan to achieve early warning systems. I will reclaim my mandate, says Governor Oyetola. You also have the next one that says $50 million Gavi grant for 8 states to strengthen vaccination. The next story there, below the pictorial, nobody can break our ranks. Wike or Tom Makinde insist. These are the stories on the front page of the Nation newspaper.
All right, now on to the This Day newspaper. It has a lead story that says, viewers rate Arise presidential town hall high, set agenda for candidates. The first writer, urge others to honor invitations to address public. Nigerians divided over performance of key presidential hopefuls. And just above that, we have PDP PCC, why Tinubu is running from national debate. And just above the masthead, this is coming from Okonjo-Iweala, decoupling not answer to climate crisis. We also have security strategy against non-state actors yielding results. This is coming from the NSA Mungunu. Also, we have PDP crisis, and we have, that's the kicker, we have, I won't support Atiku's presidential bid, says Autumn. These are the major stories on the This Day newspaper.
All right, so let's take a look at the Guardian newspaper. And now the lead story there says 2023, G5 PDP governors not relenting in fight with Ayu and Atiku. You'll find the writers, it says, Autumn, to hell with Atiku and anyone supporting him. Benway Road leading to Ayu's house named after Wike. Ayu shuns Benway PDP campaign flag off. Disregard Autumn's grandstanding Benway. Grandstanding, it says Benway will vote. Atiku says Chilla. Wike cannot stop Atiku's victory. Rivers Group insist. Nwoko. Wike should be kicked out of PDP. PDP demands probe on attack of Atiku's supporters in Rivers State. You also will find above the lead story, Ekwere Madu, court adjourns till December 16, daughter charged with parents. You'd find also petrol may hit 250 naira per litre despite 4 trillion naira subsidy. Ipman says depot price now 190 naira per litre. You'd have also ANAP Foundation releases poll outcomes in 5 states. FG announces resumption of Abuja-Kaduna rail service 7 months after. You'd find also the footnote, stop 2023 election, politics not solution to Nigeria's problem, says Ogbimi. Nigeria-Twitter agreement risk collapse over global restructuring. So these are the stories on the front page of the Guardian newspaper. All right, so we'll now take perspectives on some of these stories. This morning we have in the studio our guest reviewer, Dr. Theophilus Abba. He's the director of Daily Trust Foundation. He joins us to give perspective to some of the stories this morning. Thank you so much for joining us on Daybreak.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to be here again.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
All right, so let's begin with the ASU saga now, where it's heading. Well, earlier on, we took a story about the University of Jos, which earlier we understand that they were kind of saying something in the line of an industrial action, but they have come out now to clarify that they do not necessarily mean industrial action, but they are saying lecturers to stay back at home to work because of the half salary that they have received and the complaints that lecturers, do not have enough money to continue or to go on with their work. The Speaker of the House of Representatives is saying that the federal government acted on law as ASU holds emergency meeting today. So it appears that it's not Uhuru yet as far as strike actions are concerned.
Well, many parents will be really disappointed at what is happening, because after the long strike, we thought that government and ASU had come to a meeting point. And the meeting point will include the fact that salaries should be paid. Because ASU did not go on strike just for the pleasure of it. If we look at the sequence of activities things that are taking place, they had made demand, government had made promises in 2020, 2021. These issues had been on, and government did not meet, this side of the promise. Government will tell ASU that, look, we're going to ensure that so and so is done, and it will not be reflected in the budget. For the first time in many years, Buhari included the request from ASU in 2023 budget. Over the years, government signed agreement with ASU, but those agreements will not be reflected in the budget. Now, we thought that with this bitter, long strike, government, has realized that, look, it had done some things wrong, and the ASU also had realized that, look, they need to come to a compromise. But sincerely, not paying ASU, their salary, I don't know what law. I know this no work, no pay law, had been discussed all this while. But under this circumstance, I don't think it should apply. If you have met university lecturers and you have seen their conditions over the years, over the months, you discover that, look, it is unfair. What government had done to them is very, very unfair.
So, but while the strike was ongoing, the government have made it clear that, look, we are going to, the government have threatened that we are not going to pay you for the period that you have been on strike. And the lecturers saw this coming. So the government is also concerned about the precedents that this could set. What will the implication be if it goes ahead to pay, the lecturers?
No, but I remember Gbajabiamila made this statement. His own negotiation, his own intervention was like the one, that led to the breakthrough, between government and ASU. I don't know if you remember what happened. It was after Gbajabiamila's intervention, that, Buhari now said, okay, I'm coming in, and Gbajabiamila said, no, Buhari is going to pay the outstanding salaries. I remember Gbajabiamila saying that. So, and that is why it's like he is the one responding to what has happened, that they were applying the law. And I think some other versions say Buhari will intervene, because the assurance that I read, that Gbajabiamila gave to ASU was that, don't worry, the no work, no pay will not apply.
But he didn't expressly say, though. From what he is saying is that the president will look into it, and they are working on some kind of partial payment.
This is the current, the statement of yesterday. Is that what you are talking about? But previously,
no, but I remember the yesterday statement. He's referring to the discussions had earlier, where he said that at that time he said that the president is going to look into, how, there will be some kind of partial payment for the salary.
You see, they have to
100%.
be, these people have to be paid, the child must be paid.
But Gbajabiamila yesterday, he said something. He said, while saying that the federal government acted on law, he added that this is a way of the federal government ensuring that these kind of disruptions do not occur in the future, either in the education sector or even in other sectors. So is it possible that the government is doing this to prevent this kind of disruptions?
No, my problem is that, you see, if we are arguing that ASU did the wrong thing, then we are unfair to ASU. You see, if you don't want this kind of disruption to take place, and I know that the medical workers or health workers, they have issues with government, they will go on strike until. You see, it means that government must meet its terms of the agreement. You cannot, sign an agreement with a labor organization and not keep to your terms of agreement. And this, you see, going on strike is part of the rights of workers. You know, when you know that, look, your rights have contravened, when you know that what government ought to have done, it didn't do, then you have the right to go on strike. There's nothing criminal, there's nothing offensive about going on strike. You're actually protesting ill treatment. So I'm feeling that, you see, even though we are seeing it as, okay, there was a law. If there was a law, we now have to look at what led to the strike.
All right.
It's not like ASU went on strike for the pleasure of it. They went on strike because government did not keep its terms of the agreement.
All right. Now we saw the Vice Chancellor of the University of Jos saying what the lecturers are observing at the moment is sit at home. And then there was a meeting yesterday into the late night, and maybe by today we'll find out. If for whatever reason the ASU decides to go on strike now, and only recently the federal government recognized KUNWA, what impact will it make for what impact will the KUNWA make if ASU were to go on strike again?
No, this is a matter of choice, I think. This is a matter of, I understand those who belong to KUNWA are mainly medical and dental, lecturers. I don't know.
And some lecturers in the University of Ibadan.
Okay, some University of Ibadan. Okay, now. Any lecturer who doesn't want to belong to ASU can actually migrate to this new association. But what I'm driving at is that it is not fair for government to enter into an agreement and not keep to its terms of agreement. And after these 8 months of strike, you cannot decide to say you are withholding the salaries of lecturers. There had been agreement, there had been discussions, negotiations, and all those. And at the point when ASU said, look, we are terminating our strike action, there was this understanding that a lot of things will be made good. It shouldn't, government should think to rethink what it's doing concerning the payment of salaries.
All right, so let's talk about the politics, the lead stories of some of the papers, especially the Daily Trust newspaper is carrying the lead story that talks about political issues. It says this is basically focusing on how the major or say top presidential candidates are planning to deal with the issue of insecurity. It says armed groups, Kwankwaso joins Obi on dialogue as Tinubu Atiku unveil strategy. So they seem to be in agreement, all the top candidates talking about dialogue with the insurgents and maybe the carrot and stick approach for both. That's what we've been using all along. But again, what's your take on this?
I think there is a scarcity of ideas, and among even these people who want to rule us again, because there's no strategy they have come up with that we've not tried. We have tried dialogue, we have tried even amnesty. Well, unsolicited amnesty. You say, look, just drop your arm. We are going to. And there was even a report that in the name of amnesty, some of these bandits were even giving vehicles, and they were giving some kind of support. So there's no strike that has not been employed all this while. And so, if anyone is coming up with dialogue, with amnesty and all those are not new ideas. Those are definitely not new ideas. And I'm thinking that anybody who wants to become president of Nigeria, all this while should have done a lot of studies concerning this banditry and terrorism, and come up with something that is new, something that is, something that can work. And we know that we have argued again and again that the best approach to this thing is to wet Nigeria with security agencies. We don't have enough policemen, we don't have enough soldiers, we don't have enough people to police Nigeria. And I'm thinking that if you are talking about securing Nigeria, defeating bandits, defeating Boko Haram, or whatsoever, these are the lines that you must toe. We have to employ more security personnel. We have to equip them to do, to deal with criminals.
So the other argument is the fact that military might or the use of force alone may not, translate into ending the security issues that we're dealing with. So yes, we can double the number of our security personnel, but then again, it also leaves another issue of the recruitment process, the grounds, the opportunities that the terrorists and the bandits have to continue to recruit more people into their ranks.
Now, I think the first step is actually to defeat them. You see, because if you have not defeated an enemy, you cannot begin to say you are going to discourage the person, because the enemy will keep on fighting, because he knows he has an upper hand. And like I keep saying, we learn from other countries. I give an example of Algeria. In the 90s, Algeria was like a country where every day a bomb must go off. Every day a village will be destroyed. Will be set on fire by terrorists. What Algeria did was to wet almost every local government, equivalent of local government, with many security men, and these guys were able to challenge the terrorists. Today you don't hear about terrorism in Algeria. It was after they had defeated the terrorists that they now say, okay, let us talk. Terrorists now say, okay, no, we want to become. So you can't talk with somebody who tends to have an upper hand. You must first of all defeat the person and say, look, what are you asking for?
Okay. While Kwankwaso and Obi are talking dialogue, the former Vice President Atiku says he would tackle his agitation with Government of National Unity. His spokesperson, Dino Melai, said that once you are able to get people from all parts of the country into the government, that it will tackle this. What do you say to that?
Well, I don't know. You're getting people from all parts of the country. I don't know whether it is security architecture that he's referring to, because going by the constitution, Nigerians from all parts of the country must be part of the cabinet. For instance, every state is represented in the Federal Executive Council is part of bringing people together. Unless he's saying that the security architecture. When you talk about national unity, well, perhaps you are looking at maybe a cohesion, social cohesion, or things like that. But I'm thinking that the major issue is that people are engaged in criminality, and you must deal with this criminality. I don't know if you are talking about national unity. You're trying to maybe play. With the issues, the major issue
ambiguous.
That
national unity
is vague. It's very ambiguous. It's very vague. We are talking of criminality. Somebody is in his house, you kidnap him, you ask him to bring money. It's a criminal act, and we're talking of organized crime. If the criminality does not, it's not about, ethnic communities. I don't put it that way. It's not about
I think
ethnicity.
Perhaps that narrows, maybe the issue of national unity narrows the whole security problems to maybe issue of insurrection, and then maybe the cause for secession and some of these grievances that are expressed.
Well, perhaps the call for, there was such cause, but sincerely, I believe that anything that is illegal, anything that is criminal must be dealt with. For instance, you are saying you want to be given your own country or your own state within Nigeria. That is not acceptable. Because like I keep arguing, we have 36 states. Every state, has a measure of autonomy running its system. If you say there's corruption in your state, it is not because of the federal government that there's corruption. It's not because of the government from another part of the country that there's corruption. You have to deal with the situation in your own state. You can elect a House of Assembly members. You can elect your governor, you can elect the local government chairman, and insist that, look, these are the things that we want done. You can do it at that level. But to now say, okay, we want a section of this country to be annexed and given another name, you see, it's a challenge to the federal system.
Okay, so while we're still talking politics, recently, the presidential candidate of the Labour Party, Peter Obi, was on Trust TV, on Trust TV's program 30 Minutes, where he spoke extensively about why he doesn't flaunt his wealth, the source of his wealth, his track record as a former governor, and his dealings with the previous positions, where he held different offices at different capacities and all that. So quite an extensive discussion there. What do you make of this the frugal nature, you know, of the Labour Party president, you know, based on what he said in that interview?
Well, the first comment I will make is that to be frugal is a measure of self-discipline. You know, I don't flaunt my wealth. I don't waste money. I'm very careful. You know, it's a virtue that I think is good for an individual. Now, my concern is that being frugal does not mean that you can make a good leader at the national level. You understand? I'm not saying that he can't make a good leader, but that should not be like the credential, the only credential. Because tackling, the issues, you know, of insecurity, issues concerning inflation, and all this and all that, those are macroeconomic things that, you know, you must have the capacity to deal with them. Now, secondly, I'm looking forward to a president who does not depend on others to decide for him or her. I mean, although I think we have some female. Yes, there's some female. I think there's some female presidential aspirants. But I'm thinking that, look, I think it's being frugal.
One and I don't know.
One or so.
Being frugal is not enough. Being frugal is not enough. You know, to a great extent, I think Buhari too has a measure of frugality. You know. But I don't think that has translated to the kind of economic development that we are looking for. The fact that, you don't flaunt your wealth doesn't mean that, you have good policies.
Well, he said quite a lot. Yeah, he said quite a lot, though, in that interview. For those who haven't watched it, it's time to go and watch that. It's on our YouTube page. And also, if you pick a copy of the Daily Trust newspaper, the entire interview was transcribed on page 3 of the paper. So I think... Yeah. All
right, away from politics, well, not totally away from politics. There's a story here, still on the Daily Trust. 2 TikTokers bagged 20 lashes to clean toilets. Actually, they are also to sweep for posting Ganduje sleeps a lot. Now, the thing is this, these TikTokers, we have seen a lot of them lately. They come out, they do things that make people laugh, they imitate people and all of that. But where do you draw the line? Because these TikTokers actually talked about Ganduje. They allege that if he sees any land, he must acquire it, and they also say he sleeps a lot. At what point do you draw the line, you know, between just making people laugh or between just talking and then making allegations that oftentimes you're not able to substantiate?
Okay, in mass communication, you know, and we need to look at these issues from the perspective of theories. You see, there's what we call parody. Now, when you engage in parody, that is the nature of cartoons, the nature of satire that people write, the nature of, you know, simulation and things like that. You know, when you engage in such things, you are actually saying that what I'm saying is not true. What I'm saying is not true. But then I'm making fun, I'm making jokes.
Perhaps exaggerated.
Yes, it can be exaggerated. You understand? It can be exaggerated. Now, the problem is this. If you make people laugh, if you make fun of somebody, for instance, you draw my hand to be longer than the one is longer than the other, maybe in order to portray me as somebody who is selfish or whatsoever. You know, if you do that, you know, people will laugh and say, "Oh, look at this man." Oh, you design. You draw me wearing torn cloth, you know, to show that, oh, this guy does not have honor. You understand? Those are elements of literature, those are elements of satire, those are elements of parody, which are allowed, you know, because, you know, people are made to relax, are made to laugh, it's made to check yourself again. So is this what people think about me? Now, but to go to the extent of saying that somebody acquires property illegally, somebody, take somebody's property, that goes too far. And I'm thinking that, I don't know whether it's the Sharia code that has to do with it, but the law of libel is there. Because you need to now go to the court of law and prove, you know, that what you have said is factual. You have evidence. I don't know the status of TikTok, you know, but TikTok is like, I was looking at it in the form of a cartoon, you know, equivalent of cartoon in newspapers, equivalent of maybe satire or things like that. Now, it has, I mean, this guy needs to be taken to a court of law, and lawyers should defend them. If we agree that it is satire, you understand, then you cannot punish anyone for writing satire.
Yes, the magistrate court actually issued that judgment.
Okay.
For them to be, lashed,
yes,
20
in
lashes.
public.
Yes, in public, and then some fines. I think 10,000 naira, 10,000 naira. For different charges and all that. So it was.
What I'm driving at is this. The fact is this: in communication, in the society, you see, we tend to expose, what important people do, in order to help them realize that these things that are being done, people are seeing them.
So that role, the social media itself plays the role of perhaps putting a check.
It's a way of putting a check, yes.
On public office holders.
Yes. Yeah. I don't know whether it is.
But again, the issue of professionalism,
But what I'm saying, I don't know whether it should take it so seriously.
Yes, when
to
you
the
make,
point of saying that this is libelous.
Yes. So when you make claims, when there are claims, do you have evidence to substantiate that? Do you have something to prove?
Yes, and doesn't this also talk about the fact that freedom of speech is not totally, is not total? It stops somewhere. At the point where you begin to hurt another person, you can't say, oh, I have a right, I can just say what I want to say.
But the nature of satire is, hurts people, makes you to laugh at some persons. But if it is declared as satire, I don't know if I'm making sense. If it's declared that, look, this is satirical, this is a cartoon. A typical example is cartoon. If you draw a cartoon, and you make somebody's head to be bigger than what it is.
But even in those cartoons in the paper, you're careful so that it's not libelous.
Yeah, you don't sue for cartoon. If cartoon is like a work of fiction, even if I do what we call literal reality, I write a work of fiction that looks like the reality, but I declare that it's a work of fiction.
So perhaps maybe then we should begin to look at our laws and review them. To look at how it can also accommodate these new trends of social media.
But I think it has to do with legal representation. If these guys were taken to court and there was no lawyer to defend their case, because if they declare that it was TikTok, number one, and TikTok is not saying that this is journalism, we are not reporting what is real. We are actually making a parody, making, what do you call it? Making fun, and this is based on what
there are millions of such
in
things
circulation.
On TikTok,
so punishing someone for it is another issue altogether.
All right. So the CJN, the Chief Justice of Nigeria, is warning judges while setting up the 2023 election tribunal. Is warning judges not to betray the trust of Nigerians in 2023 election matters. He talks about how dicey the jobs of judges is, especially in a period like this, where they are likely to be exposed. They are prone to being, to compromise, their standards and all that. What do you make of this call? And then also, INEC is, lamenting that the issue of litigation is dragging the whole preparations ahead of 2023 general elections. 600 cases where INEC has been involved. So far, and the chairman is really seeing that this is going to affect the preparations ahead of the 2023 election. A lot of litigations are rising from primary elections that were conducted by political parties, and some of them are seeking some candidates to be dropped, some to be added to the list, and all of that. And so,
it's a very sensitive issue at the moment. Because the courts have a maximum of 90 days, before the next election to clear all primary election cases. And now, if you have as many as 600, there are two implications. One is, will these 600 cases be cleared before the 90 days that is stipulated by the law? That is one. Secondly, do we have enough judges to handle these cases? 600 cases. Now, if you have, let's say, if before a court of appeal, you have up to maybe 30 or 40, there are series sequence of activities that will take place before a final judgment is delivered on each of them. That there may not be enough time to clear these cases before we hold the elections in 2023. Now, what it implies is this. Unfortunately, those who have money can buy judges. Those who have money could buy judges. Because whatever the judge says now is going to be it.
Isn't that why the CJN has made this call?
Of course.
So that you're not able to buy them?
I know from previous years, we have discovered that judges have even decided who becomes elected governor, elected House of Representatives, elected senator, because of this kind of a problem. There's not enough time to really look at the issues. So if you don't have, if unfortunately you get to, your case is before a corrupt judge, and of course we don't know, some of them could be corrupt, and then these judges, I say, look, I'm close to my retirement, I need a lot of money, and politicians, are the sources where you can get this money. He could just decide any case the way he wants. And then whatever the judge says, we hear that judges are next to God. Whatever they say, is what stands. So we are hoping that, one, there should be enough money, for these cases to be heard as quickly as possible. They should release the money for the Court of Appeal, which is saddled with that responsibility to handle this relation case. Let their funds be released, so that they can quickly handle this case.
So finally, before we go, I'd like for you to give us your take. What do you make of the issue of the resumption of services for the Abuja-Kaduna train? The federal government is saying by the end of the month, operation is going to resume for the Abuja-Kaduna train service.
Well, I think it's good news, because that means of transmission is actually more comfortable, supposed to be more secure, until the attack on the train earlier this year. We were thinking that if you were traveling on that train from Abuja to Abuja to Kaduna, you feel comfortable. Taking that train before, very comfortable. So the important thing is, well, let's ensure security. We shouldn't expose passengers to the kind of attack that happened, and all the agony that they passed through.
Do you think the passengers will have the confidence to go on those trains?
Usually, after some time, people will be very confident. They will still fly that route, because even right now, Abuja-Lokoja Road, Abuja-Kaduna Road used to be, seems to be dangerous. But I know people, since the train service stopped, people have been, using their vehicles and applying that route. So after some time, you get used to, risks. You just say, okay, we have to take risks, and it's not every day that terrorists will attack. So we'll have confidence in the train system.
All right, thank you so much. It's a good place for us to end the newspaper review for today. We thank you for joining us on Daybreak.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Our guest reviewer is Dr. Theophilus Abba, the director of Daily Trust Foundation, giving us his perspectives on some of the top stories on our newspapers this morning. We'll take a short breather now, and then when we return, Daybreak continues. Join us again.
TV, documenting the Nigerian story.
All right, thank you for staying with us. It's top of the hour. You're watching Trust TV's Daybreak show, the morning show right here. Let's take a look at the headlines this morning again. You have half salaries. Federal government acted on law, says Speaker of the House of Representatives.
2023 elections, farmers will deliver 25 million votes for Tinubu. Lalong.
Ekwere Madu to spend Christmas New Year in prison as court fixes January 31 for trial.
Now let's take a look at the details. Speaker of the House of Representatives, Femi Gbajabiamila, has appealed for calm over the issues between the Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASU, and the federal government. In a statement on Monday, Gbajabiamila said the federal government acted in the interest of the law, adding that it was the government's legitimate interest to prevent disruptive industrial actions. According to him, when ASU called off their industrial action 3 weeks ago, it meant that academic activities would resume in our nation's public universities and students could return to their academic pursuits after the prolonged interruption. This decision was rightly hailed nationwide as correct. The Speaker was reacting to the meeting of the members of NEC of ASU on Monday in Abuja. The union, which embarked on strike in February, called it off in October following the intervention of the Speaker.
All right, now the Director General of the All Progressives Congress Presidential Campaign Council and Plateau State Governor Simon Lalong says the council targets 25 million votes for farmers across the country for the party in the 2023 presidential elections. Lalong stated this at the Tinubu-Shetima Town Hall meeting with representatives of agro-commodity groups from the 19 northern states in Mina, Niger State. Lalong, who urged heads of cooperatives and association of farmers to mobilize their members to vote for APC, said Bola Tinubu has a plan to develop the agricultural sector from subsistence to commercial level in order to achieve food sufficiency in the country. He said the meeting was one of the critical engagements to enable the presidential candidate to understand the challenges facing farmers and farming activities in order to achieve food sufficiency through mechanized agriculture and improved value chain.
Now, the Central Criminal Court in London, the United Kingdom, has adjourned the trial of Deputy Senate President Ike Ekweremadu to January 31st, 2023. The bailiff agreed that arguments will be heard on the 16th or 19th of December 2022 before the commencement of the trial in January. Though he was absent from court on Monday, his wife, who was released on bail in July, and Sonia, their daughter, were present in the court. Ekweremadu is facing charges over alleged organ harvesting. Ekweremadu and his wife Beatrice were arrested on June 23 and charged with conspiracy to trafficking a person for organ harvesting in violation of the Modern Slavery Act 2015.
All right, let's take a look at some of the packages this morning. The Nigeria Communications Commission is set to put up another slot of spectrum in the 3.5 gigahertz spectrum band for auction before the end of the year 2022 to boost the deployment of fifth-generation services in parts of the country. This was part of deliberations when the management of Media Trust Group visited the executive vice chairman of the commission, where both organizations agreed to further expand and leverage existing relationships through the engagement of additional services. Trust TV's Aisha Salihu has more.
At the interface with the management of Media Trust Group and the Nigerian Communications Commission, there is a consensus that the role of media cannot be overemphasized in disseminating information to the public, as well as building partnerships for mutual benefits.
But we always use the media in order to provide information to the public. We wouldn't have been able to do it, no matter how powerful our Directorate of Public Affairs is, because you have what it takes to reach out. We don't have that reach. Okay, so we appreciate the very, very important work the media is doing, and in particular the very, very important work that Daily Trust is doing.
The executive vice chairman of the commission informed the Media Trust team of the first action turnout of the 5G technology, which the commission is set to action again, with promises of substantial network improvements, higher connection speed, mobility and capacity, as well as low latency capabilities to communication services in Nigeria.
Now commercial 5G services in Lagos. As we speak, MTN has launched 5G commercial services. And we have spoken at length about the usage scenarios, ultra reliable, low latency applications, very fast. Okay? And then we talk about driverless cars, machine-to-machine control. Okay? Even though those are applications we do not expect to see, but what we have started with is the enhanced mobile broadband services. I'm sure when you eventually enjoy the 5G experience, you'll be surprised at how fast you're able to access the internet as well as download material from your internet. The speed has gone much higher than we know it, of course at affordable cost.
The deployment of the 5G technology is to act as a catalyst for smart cities in the country and a platform for the creation of jobs that support the digital economy as stipulated by the National Policy on Fifth Generation Networks. Aisha Salihu, Trust TV News, Abuja.
Thank you, Aisha Salihu, for that report. The Kano to Maradi Trans-Saharan Rail Line project is conceived to boost trade relations between Nigeria and the landlocked African country. Nigeria's Minister of Transportation, Muazu Sambo, made a clarification at a news conference to showcase the scorecard of the administration, just as he decried the lack of formal treaty between the countries to leverage opportunities provided by the multi-billion naira project. Trust TV's Shafiu Suleiman brings us the report.
While assuring the restoration of the suspended Abuja-Kaduna shuttle service before the end of this month, the Minister of Transport told newsmen that comprehensive plan has been made to guarantee a 24-hour surveillance of the rail lines to ensure safety of travelers.
The minister should be able to sit in his office and look at the rail corridor and see what is happening there. The president should be able to do that. The Director General of the SSS should be able to do that, and so on, and all other security agencies. These are the measures we have put in place.
Unprecedented rail modernization, including the Trans-Saharan Kano to Maradi. He says the project, amongst others, will boost the nation's economy and facilitate trade relations between Nigeria and others up to Europe if completed.
Niger is supposed to continue from Maradi up to its border. The next country, which is I think Mali, will take up, and then Algeria will take its own. And before you know it, you can move your cargo from Lagos to Europe by rail, and cheaply so.
Providing a sector-by-sector achievements of the Buhari administration, the Transport Minister enumerated the Deep Blue Sea amongst other projects in the maritime sector.
The President commissioned the Deep Blue project in June 2021, and we are proud today to inform Nigeria and indeed the world that since the commissioning took place, there hasn't been a single reported case of piracy in Nigeria's exclusive economic zone.
The Minister of Information and Culture, Lai Mohammed, who moderated the session, reiterated that the Buhari government has made giant strides in the area of critical infrastructure, far above any other administration. There are, however, growing concerns on the huge borrowings the government is embarking upon to realize these projects. Shafiu Suleiman, Trust TV News, Abuja.
All right, now, since the National Minimum Wage Bill was signed into law for implementation nearly 5 years ago, civil servants in Kano State say that their fortunes have not changed for the better, looking up to the federal government for another review in the next 1 year. In this report, Trust TV correspondent Idris Jibrin reports that workers say that the current high cost of living is making it difficult for the minimum wage to sustain an average worker. Take a look.
Babangida Inua is a civil servant in Kano who earns 30,600 naira a month. But with the high cost of living eating deep into his earning, he's wondering if civil service will continue to be his way forward. Over the last 5 days, Babangida says he has been waiting for salary to buy the little he could for his family. But the salary has not come yet. My salary is 30,000 naira. Once I buy 1 bag of rice, it's finished. Therefore, other things like children's health, school fees, nothing for that. Not only 1 bag of rice. Even if I'm buying maize, 30,000 naira will not buy 2 bags of maize for me, which means the whole salary cannot sustain me. According to Workers' Union in Kano, most civil servants are still suffering despite the implementation of the national minimum wage. The price of food items have gone high, which makes it even difficult for low-salary earners to meet up with the demands of their families, even with the 30,000 naira minimum wage.
How much is a bag of rice presently? I think is if you buy even a bag of rice, it can split even the 30,000. So that is why he said government is looking at ways where it can enhance the salary of Nigerian workers. But even if that is not done, I think from 2019 to date is almost 4 years. So if you see that by next year, the new national minimum wage law provides that the minimum wage of this country should also be reviewed according to the provision of the law.
Meanwhile, workers say that despite the minimum wage, some local government areas in Kano are yet to fully implement it, another problem creating tension among government workers.
The minimum wage is not fully implemented, especially at the local governments. Okay. We have been discussing with the labor and the government cycle on how to complete the minimum wage. The minimum wage at the state workers is complete, but those at the local government is halfway implemented. But still we are discussing with the state government to make it complete as they did it at the state.
While the national minimum wage bill provides that the worker's salary be reviewed after each 5 years, workers in Kano hopes that the review in about 1 year from now will help bring relief to their long years of hardship. Idris Jubrin, Trust TV News, Kano.
Thank you, Idris Jibril, for that report. Ayuba, when I heard that opening part, that man that earns 30,600 in this economy.
Yes, and he's not alone. Quite many of them are there with responsibilities, with families, with brothers, siblings, and the rest of them who they look after, and the rest of that. And so sometimes you kind of wonder, how do they really do it?
How do they cope?
How would someone earning 30,000 naira in today's Nigeria's economy survive with that amount? Well, how do you buy? What do you buy? What will you buy and what will you not buy?
You know, if you
how
go to the market
do you take care
now,
of school fees? How do you take care of
house rent?
House rents. How do you take care of other bills, electricity, issue of water? How do you get around all those things?
You know, even the Daily Trust newspaper led with a story yesterday that said that civil servants now engage in menial jobs to attempt to meet up, because it doesn't automatically mean that you will still meet up.
And you know, this also takes me to another issue of, we keep talking about fighting corruption. These are civil servants, right, working with government, and what they are earning cannot meet their needs. So, and they have to come for work, right? They have to work, right? So where exactly do you expect them to make that extra money to cover up for the gaps, to cover up for what is missing there, you know? So it goes back to the issue of civil servants having to now also look for ways around what they do and exploiting or maybe take advantage of others.
You cannot tackle corruption without looking at the wages of civil servants.
Exactly. And I'm wondering, now we are talking about reviewing the minimum wage. If you increase it, how much would you increase it in a way that it can actually take care of, you know, the bills and all of that?
And while we're talking about that, there are some states that are still not implementing that minimum wage. So
and at this point, I kind of feel like even if you take it to 50,000 naira or even 100 naira, 100,000 naira, it may not be enough. So we should be talking about how do we strengthen our naira such that it can help Nigerians. It can boost Nigeria's purchasing power, in that direction. That's just, all I've got.
All right, away from that, let's take a look at another package. The Vice Chancellor of the University of Jos, Tanko Ishaya, says lecturers of the university have not gone on strike but decided to teach from home because of financial difficulties faced by them. This is coming 2 days after the members of the Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASU, issued a notice of stay at home until their withheld salaries were paid by the federal government. In an interactive session with journalists held at the university on Monday, the Vice Chancellor said, to the best of the knowledge of the university management, the academic staff decided to teach from home and not that they had declared another strike action. Ado Musa completes the report.
The Vice Chancellor said, soon after the National Executive Council of Academic Staff Union of University called off its prolonged strike, the university management agreed that in an event where the lecturers are not paid when academic activities resume, they could continue with their academic activities virtually using technology, adding that they had put in all plans with respect to virtual platforms in order to ensure both academic staff and students are able to engage.
Trying to ensure that the policy of no work, no pay is actually implemented. I'm appealing to government to look at the university system slightly differently from a number of perspectives. And I use this opportunity to say that the role and the responsibility of an academic is not only teaching. That is, the role of an academic is not only teaching. Perhaps we have not been saying this loud and clear, but I use this opportunity to make it very clear that as an academic, your responsibility and your letter of appointment describes 3 main responsibilities: teaching, research, and community engagement.
On the issue of no work, no pay, which the federal government has insisted on, the Vice Chancellor has appealed to the federal government to reconsider its position and pay the lecturers their salaries, as the work of the academic staff was beyond teaching in classrooms, as it included research and community services, which he believed that the lecturers had engaged in even during the prolonged strike.
Because of lack of payment of salaries, academic staff can do their lectures from home using the technologies, and we have put in all the plans in place with respect to the virtual platforms in order to ensure that both academic staff and students are able to, to engage with academic staff, while studying, while delivering other lectures, tutorials, or whatever from home.
The academic staff of the university had on Sunday issued a notice directing all its members to stay at home and asked students to wait until the backlogs of their salaries were paid. Ado Musa, Trust TV News, Jos.
All right. We'll take a short break, and then when we return, the Daybreak will continue. Please stay with us.
Nigerians, elections are here again. Let us shun violence. Let us play the game according to the rules. Do not be a thug. Say no to violence. Let's rise and defeat violence, crime, and sabotage against the peace of our nation. Nigeria is the only country we have. We must do everything to keep it united. We must avoid any act that promotes hate and disintegration. Say no to separatist movement, terrorism, fake news, hate speech, religious bigotry, and any act that tends to divide us as a nation. Watch out for strange gatherings and suspicious movements. Restrict access to sensitive documents and data, the disclosure of which may damage national security. Educate your staff and family, particularly on measures to safeguard information and report security breaches. Apply relevant legal security guidelines to protect yourself and your neighbors. Due to misinformation and wrong choices, some idle persons resort to vices in their greed to get rich quick. They resort to kidnapping, killings for rituals, and other heinous crimes. Avoid wrong use of the social media. Before you broadcast that false message, think twice. Ask whether it will promote peace or violence. For safety at home, still be security conscious. Educate your household on safety tips. Report all suspicious movements and persons to the security agencies nearest to you. Be a good citizen. Be patriotic. To pass security information, please call 0813-222-2105, 0915-339-1309, 0908-837-3514, or send a mail to dsspr@dss.gov.ng. This message is from the Department of State Services, DSS.
That's great. That's good to see you.
All right, thank you for staying with us here watching Daybreak on Trust Television. Time for us to take a look at our next discussion on the program. Victory has relations. Vanquish is an orphan. Notes an ancient African anthem. As Nigeria fades due to economic mismanagement, the world has decoupled in many ways. The U.S. Embassy has turned off its visa website for weeks now, and the UK has a bigger high voltage searchlight as it sieves the few allowed. But check you are on your own. Nigerians in Dubai have been in the news for many reasons, most of which are for bad conduct, including cyber crime, cultism, and the rest of them. We are going to be talking about this, and we have in the studio a very prolific guest, I would say, because he's been more like a friend of the house right now, and he's going to be talking to us about this issue. He is Yusuf Baba, an economist, is strategist and policy analyst, talking to us about brain drain and the issue of Nigerians in UAE and then the diplomatic row between Nigeria and the UAE. Thank you so much for joining us on Daybreak.
Thank you for having me, Ayu.
All right.
Fella.
All right, now let's start with the economic implications of the row that we are seeing between Nigeria and the UAE in terms of economic losses. If you may quantify for us, give us a sense of how much is likely to be lost as a result of the suspension of the issuance of visa for Nigerians going to the UAE, and even those who are residing there now. We understand that no more work permits and the rest of them. We've seen this issue of the Emirates airline and Nigerian government and the rest of them. In terms of losses?
Well, in terms of losses, to be honest, it will be unfair for me to give empirical numbers, but suffice it to say the loss is multidimensional, socio-economic. If we take it from the top, Central Bank of Nigeria announced that by end of Q1 2022, remittances from Nigerians in diaspora globally hit $5.16 billion, which is 20.3 increase year on year from 2021. Of course, the UAE remittances is part of that $5.16 billion. But if you just take a rule of thumb and look at the number of passengers, number of people that travel to Dubai or through Dubai, using Emirates airline, which is in thousands, maybe 2,500 or more per week, that gives you an indication of the kind of economic impacts on UAE and on Nigeria, because there is a number of Nigerians that go to Dubai for business, either to procure goods and return to Nigeria to sell, or to provide services in the United Arab Emirates. You also have people that transit through United Arab Emirates, and of course that means they will buy the Emirates ticket or any airline ticket, transit, maybe spend a day or two, and those have economic benefits for the UAE, right? And of course, during the course of transactions, Nigeria as a nation and Nigerians also benefit from that. So there is a loss on both sides, I must say, with regards to not just economic, but socio-economic impact, to be honest.
Are you really sure it's on both sides? Because yes, I agree that they will be losing money, but maybe not as much as Nigerians. Because when you look at it, when you read stories from Nigerians in the UAE currently, there are stories of tales of woes, if I may put it that way. Some of them said that right now they cannot renew their work permits, and that for each day you pay about 50 dirhams, which is about 9 to 10,000 naira for each day after the work permit expires. So would you really say that they are losing as much as Nigerians are losing?
Well, however you will see it, Stella, a loss is a loss. So on both sides, I still maintain that both sides are losing. Of course, if we look at it from the perspective of who loses more, I will say Nigeria or Nigerians lose more. I mentioned numbers earlier, that is on one side. Secondly, people are sustaining themselves and families, by virtue of working or doing business in the United Arab Emirates or through United Arab Emirates. So yes, and when you talk about the cancellation of permits and all that, those are the ripple effects of the decision taken by the government of the United Arab Emirates with regards to suspensions of visa, not just for Nigerians, but for other countries amounting to almost 20 or 22, the last time I checked, most of whom which are African nations. So yes, Nigeria is, let me say, at the receiving end of this loss more than United Arab Emirates.
Mm. Now, who do you think should take responsibility for these losses incurred? The diplomatic engagements and relations have not been in a way that it would be mutually beneficial. So who should take responsibility here?
Well, to be honest, on one side, the United Arab Emirates has taken decisions that one would say is in their best interest as a nation. Political, strategic, economic, whatever. Nigeria equally has maybe been taking some action, as albeit I feel it should be more robust and more strategic, because as we mentioned earlier, the impact has been more on Nigerians. But I think we should also backtrack and look at the genesis of the issues with regards to how we get here. apart from the naysaying and the tales of woes, to also look at the brighter side and say, how did we get here? I agree. As someone that has worked in the United Arab Emirates, still does business in the United Arab Emirates, I believe that things could have been done better. And we have innocent, good Nigerian citizens, that are there to conduct good business, legal businesses that have become collateral damages, if you can call it that, of this decision taken. Of course, when such decisions are taken, globally, you have these collateral damages that will impact. But also, when you talk about taking responsibility now, there is a function of the position of the government of Nigeria, but also more so the responsibility of its people. I believe that it is not just a failure of the leadership of Nigeria. Part of the issues you mentioned earlier, decisions taken by the United Arab Emirates, have to do with criminality, around cybercrime, around drug trafficking, around cultism and all that. And no nation that wants to progress will idle while these things are happening. But again, as a nation, the leadership and the people must be conscious in their various spheres of responsibility. The people that travel out of Nigeria, when we are talking about Nigeria now, because it happens in other countries as well, to commit crime are a fraction of a larger number of Nigerians that go and conduct and add value and make positive impacts to those countries, including United Arab Emirates.
Exactly.
Now, the problem with negative impact of criminality of a people is the pungent effect on the overall. Now, in this context, if I, as an individual, travel out of the country, whichever it is in this country, Nigeria, and go out there and commit crime, we can't blame it on the government of that country that I committed a crime because maybe there's hunger in the land. There are two different things. The erosion of value systems are part of the issues why we are where we are today. But of course, in terms of how these people that are criminal-minded end up in countries like United Arab Emirates, that is where we will discuss about the involvement of government, the action or inactions of government that led to these issues.
Well, Mr. Baba, before we talk about the criminal elements and all of that, you do remember that the face-off between Nigeria and the United Arab Emirates started almost getting to 2 years now.
Yeah.
Remember when the Emirates insisted that Nigerians traveling had to conduct a separate COVID test aside the one that they had conducted. Nigeria had fought and back with them, their services were suspended, and after an interface they came back and they insisted on going ahead with that. So, people say that with all of that there was already friction even before the criminal aspect of it came in. So do you think that that issue could have been handled differently?
Yes, it may have to a large extent. I agree with you. When we go back to the issue of the COVID issue, which is not just a UAE issue, it was a global issue when it was found out that we Nigerians have found a way to circumvent the proper standard COVID protocol and having fake, COVID test results. And we all saw on the media how these things were happening. And a country like United Arab Emirates took a proactive position to do what you call raising the bar of ensuring that that COVID test is properly done and all that, which led to a diplomatic row. I think I had a conversation about this, in 2020 with regards to the overall national strategic plan with regards to engaging international organizations and other countries, in this regard. Maybe things would have been better, yes, in terms of engagement. But you see, engagement can only yield fruit when there are proper actions that have been taken and also proactive measures to curtail reoccurrence of those issues, with regards to how the country you are going to are positioned. And I think that is what led to the issue of COVID. You can also talk about the aero politics with Emirates with regards to frequencies of air flights for our own dear Air Peace versus the Emirates. You can also talk about the trapped funding, for international almost $500 million trapped. So part of the responsibility is possibly with regards to our strategy in terms of international diplomacy and international trade. It appears we are a bit reactive in most of the cases rather than proactive, and it leaves us in embarrassing situations that will have to not mitigate but do damage control.
All right. So let's talk about international law now. With regards to this decision by the UAE, do you see a violation there of the right to free movement as according to the United Nations Declaration? There are those who have argued that, look, everyone has a right to reside in any country, even beyond the borders of the country of his own birth. So looking at this, convention and all that, there seems to be a violation there, don't you think?
I don't think there's violation. Every country that is sovereign does what it has to do to protect its territorial integrity. I'm not making excuses for the United Arab Emirates, but I want us to look at this on a level playing ground. Nigeria also has the right to apply the same rule. We have the principle of reciprocity in diplomacy, which Nigeria applied when Emirates refused to increase the frequency of air peace. But I think it is within the realm of individual countries' strategy, to ensure their country is secure, safe, and is doing businesses the way it should be done. So, and like I said, it is only not Nigeria that they put embargo on, like we had. It is also across.
Yes, while talking about that, I wanted to ask, why is it that most of the countries are African countries?
Well, for me, I wouldn't know the reason, but what I know is that the UAE is undergoing a review of its international trade and diplomacy strategy. Let us remember that UAE became what it is due to the positive value of migration. This is a country that is small with a small population. The migrants, if you call them, are the people that impacted and added value to the growth of that entity. But over the years, it appears, the downside of that migration is impacting on the country. And what I know and what I hear from channels, sources, is that they are reviewing, and that is why you see it not pointedly. Whether it is African or overall is another issue, but I think as a country they are taking measures to now review, especially due to the fact that this is a country that thrives mostly on tourism, which means they have to be conscious and sensitive with regards to people that come in and how they operate. Before now, it is safe to say the UAE has been embracing, has been welcoming to people. That is why you have a lot of expats that have helped to develop that country. So I think it is a specific national strategy plan for UAE with regards to how they operate. I think what we should look at is how is it impacting on Nigeria? What do we need to do to be on the positive side in terms of negotiations or interactions, and see how we can rein in the bad side of what is happening and support those good people, a lot of them, a lot of good people that are there adding value to the economy of UAE, representing Nigeria properly and effectively.
Do you think that we have exhausted all our options in terms of diplomatic engagements, as regards these issues? I mean, we've talked about, criminality, how some Nigerians are conducting themselves in criminal ways and all that. Have the both countries engaged in a manner that will, while punishing the criminal-minded, also not putting the businesses of, Nigerians who are doing legitimate business, in harm's way?
Well, I think what I will expect from the Nigerian authorities is maybe more information with regards to what is going on in the diplomatic channels. We know that some of these conversations may not necessarily be out there for us. I don't know about you, openly, the two countries diplomatically engaged in a row, so to speak. But the action of the UAE suggests that there is an issue. Indeed, the ambassador of Nigeria to United Arab Emirates, the Minister of State for Foreign Affairs, and the head of the Nigerians in Diaspora Commission have variously come out with statements time to time, albeit they are just what I call comfort stories. I think the government needs to come out decisively with more clarity with regards to the engagement with the United Arab Emirates vis-a-vis what is going on currently, especially as it has to do with, like you said, the people legitimately conducting their business. We need to know what is actually going on and how what Nigerian authorities are doing to actually safeguard the integrity and the businesses of those good Nigerians. And also to use that platform to speak to Nigerians about the don'ts, if you like, of the implications of what will happen when you conduct yourself in a criminal manner misrepresenting Nigeria in a manner that it will discourage people. On this side of the country also, we expect decisiveness also from government to ensure, much as we know that there's little they can do about tuning the behavior of people when they go out there, but to filter as much as possible people that we believe are of questionable character, traveling out of this country, not just in the UAE, but to other countries.
That leads me to, yes.
It's not only UAE that is taking this position.
Yes, another critical issue is how to do the filtering. How do you filter to make sure that these people that are traveling out are not of questionable character? How do you do that?
Thank you very much. One of it is a short to long term thing. It is not a one-off thing, and that is a complete value reorientation of our country, of our people, with regards to how we behave. The value systems of Nigeria and Nigerians has eroded over time. And therefore, what we aspire or what we want to see as Nigerians in terms of leadership, in terms of progress of the country, is becoming a mirage because of the erosion of those value systems, which is part of the reasons why we see what is happening with people going out there. So how the government itself conduct itself in the process of governance and managing the people is key. What is the national strategy and action plan with regards to value reorientation of the people, is another thing. The quick win is having to do with the process of people traveling out of the country. And the big roadblock, if you like, is the economic gateways. Let me use the airports, for example. To be honest, much leaves to be desired with regards to the protocol of exit out of Nigeria for Nigerians. Of course, you will agree with me even for people that are coming in, but I will leave the incoming first. The processes are there for people to exit the country. But from the desks at immigration and customs and all those desks you pass through to board the aircraft to travel, I believe the filtering can take place. There are people that need to present their visas, that need to present valid accommodation evidences and all that before they travel. Okay? And if you go to the airport, for example, in UAE, you find that people who have been allowed to travel, that had arrived UAE without fulfilling all the conditions required to travel. Now, how did they exit Nigeria only to end up in a UAE or another country? And it turns out that the requirements for them to travel, the immigration requirements, have not really been fulfilled vis-a-vis the subsisting requirements. For example, in the UAE, the new law with regards to traveling, people less than 40 years shouldn't travel, people traveling should travel, with their families and all that. So how did individuals that are less than 40 end up at that other side of the divide? That is the filtering I'm talking about. And I think when that is done, we will start making progress with regards to the wrong people traveling.
The Daily Trust newspaper on Saturday led with a story on the situation of Nigerians in the UAE. And one of the respondents said that some of these recruiters that come to Nigeria to offer employment opportunities and all of that, they don't give the full picture of what you find when you come to the UAE.
Yes.
So these Nigerians, because of the unemployment rate in the country, would go with these recruiters, and then when they get there, they find out that they are not in that country legally, and then they encounter all of these problems. What can maybe the Ministry of Labor do about that?
I think it's not a Ministry of Labor issue, to be honest. If you will agree with me, this particular scenario you painted is an old scenario. The United Kingdom, the United States of America, back in the days, we even hear how people are lured, Italy and other countries. They will go there, it's El Dorado, milk and honey is flowing on the streets, and they end up there Their passports are held by those people that took them there, not necessarily locals, but Nigerians that are doing this international trafficking in humans. So it's a long-standing issue. But let's bring it back to the UAE situation. I think it's a function, it's an interagency issue. I mentioned the immigration conversation earlier on, which is not just an immigration office issue, to say, like you rightly mentioned, if these people, because they have the right, you have to be careful not to cross the boundary of the fundamental human rights, even in Nigeria, because the same people you are trying to protect will tell you, I have the right to start to go out of the country and look for a job. You don't have to stop me. Let me go there and see for myself. So information sharing, Ministry of Information and National Orientation, Ministry of Labor, if you like, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the Immigration Service, Nigerian Diaspora Commission, I want to see an interagency collaboration with regards to information sharing, with regards to educating people of what is really going on in these countries, what are the opportunities, what are the do's, what are the don't, as much as possible to go across the strata, especially since we have social media. But importantly, our own agencies that are responsible for clearing Nigerians traveling out of the country should do their job. I believe if they do their job properly, a lot of things, negative things will be mitigated, like I gave the scenario earlier. If the subsisting requirement for traveling to UAE is you should be less than 40 and ABC, have they fulfilled that before you as an immigration officer stamp them to go? That is the first line.
So the thing here is that, I mean, not that the officers do not know their jobs or the requirements or all of that, but yet they engage in doing this thing. Something must have happened, leading to the issue of corruption now.
Absolutely.
That's what I'm going to talk about now. Money is changing hands. People are finding their way around things, going out of the conventional way and the rest of them. So in checking corruption in that regard, how do we go about this?
Goes back to what I said earlier, value reorientation. I keep on saying this in every forum recently, sounding like a broken record. But the quagmire we find ourselves in this country is not just a failure of a focal leader or focal leaders, focal point leaders, like I say, but a failure and erosion of a leadership value chain. We are all leaders in our own rights, from the homes to the churches to the mosques to the communities. There must be a leader everywhere. Now, everybody has to take responsibility for that, including parents that encourage their children, male and female, to go out of this country and do whatever they have to do to bring money, for example. The level of desperation is for the right reasons and also a lot of times for the wrong reasons. The issue of corruption, with regards to what is going on now, we all know it is in the public domain. We even see videos of exposés of how these officers collect money to allow people to go. The question is, have we ever seen, except for recently, in fairness to the current Controller General of Immigrations, we saw some proactive actions where some officers were sanctioned for these actions. But we want to see sustainability in that. We normally see what we call, mostly in Lagos, IGG, initial gragra. When you get an appointment, you come with some catchphrases and do some actions, and after a while, everything goes back to normal. Maybe because of the rot in the system overwhelms the person, or maybe people get sucked into the system at the end of the day. But what is critical for us is we should know that we cannot make progress as a nation, not just with regards to migration, until we have a total re-evaluation and reorientation of ourselves as a people. And that responsibility, of course, falls within the leadership value chain. Albeit in the short term, we want to see actions taken by government, sanctioning people, taking actions, sharing information for people to know, because to be honest, some people innocently fall into this trap because of lack of information.
But don't you think that the fact that people do certain things in Nigeria and get away with those things, they go out with that mentality?
Absolutely.
That, okay, I mean, I do this in Nigeria and I get away with it, so why is that a problem?
Absolutely, Stella.
So don't you think that the NOA has a huge role to play in this?
Absolutely. That's why I said earlier, it is supposed to be an interagency collaboration and action with focal points in some situation. In this situation, information sharing, value reorientation, information dissemination, Ministry of Information and National Orientation. But beyond that, the Ministry of Information also cannot do the job of immigration, cannot do the job of Ministry of Foreign Affairs, because there are some subsisting international laws that are reviewed time and time that the Ministry of Information need to get from the relevant ministry to be able to share. But with regards to our internal issues, I agree.
Okay.
This value orientation needs to be taken up by a focal point ministry.
Okay, by way of rounding up, how do we make traveling outside of the country in the search for economic fortunes less attractive? How do we keep more Nigerians here? Because if you look at the demography of the people that are really wanting to travel out there are youth, most of them.
Yes.
And the basic, what they are traveling for is just to seek economic fortunes.
Yes.
That's basically the issue there. So one way or the other, some of them will still travel. Whether they travel through the legal means or whether the illegal means, I mean, we've seen hundreds, die on the Mediterranean trying to cross over to Europe and other parts of the world. So what can we do urgently to, create an environment where people do not feel the need to actually leave before they can succeed?
Ayuba, there is no quick fix to this disease or malaise. There is no quick fix, I'm sorry to say. There must be a well thought out, all right, properly thought out, short to mid-term strategy to addressing this issue. And it has to do, again, with the national, orientation of people, how we think, how we do things. Unless this country becomes a country where people can thrive and grow, which means politically, socially, economically, people will continue moving out of this country. Of course, the current global economic situation, which has also impacted or added to our national economic woes, further accelerates this situation or exacerbates it. But for us to have a situation where Nigerians would rather stay than go anywhere means that the socio-economic landscape and environment is conducive enough, and the opportunities are there for people to actually thrive. Of course, we know that migration will never end. We can only significantly reduce it if our country is more united, more prosperous, and more peaceful.
All right. Before you go, the Nigerians in the UAE at the moment, they are accusing the federal government of not doing enough. The federal government on its part is saying, we are doing enough. As a matter of fact, the Diaspora Commission recently said they evacuated about 580-something people from the UAE back to Nigeria. And the Nigerians in the UAE are saying, what we want is not evacuation, because we don't want to go back to Nigeria. We want more. What do you say to that?
Well, I agree with the cry about, it's not just about evacuation. And for the record, people that are being evacuated are people that the country has declared they don't want to see them there. So Nigeria is taking the responsibility not to leave them hanging and bringing them back home. That's about that. So for people that have to be brought, there are people that are repatriated. But importantly for me to add to what you said is, like I said earlier, we want to hear more. I don't want to second guess the government. But when the government is operating in an opaque manner, with due respect, it gives room for people, one, to be genuinely concerned, two, to be raising all forms of allegations based on suspicion. We want to hear more. We want to hear discussions beyond repatriation of people, because I want to believe that government is doing a lot also engaging Albert back office to ensure that the people that are in the UAE conducting their businesses and their services legitimately are protected. But we want to hear that from the Nigerian government. That is what will demonstrate there is, there is no friction, diplomatic friction, for example, and that people will appreciate the effort of government with regards to people conducting their businesses or living in the UAE.
All right, thank you so much. That's spot on. It's a place for us to end the discussion. Thank you for joining us on Daybreak and sharing your perspectives. Always insightful, as always.
Thank you, Ayuba Stella. I appreciate it.
All right, that's our guest for today. He is Yusuf Baba, a strategist and policy analyst, giving his perspectives on Nigeria-UAE diplomatic row and all the other issues related to that. And that's our show for today. In case you have missed, you can catch up across all our social media platforms. Don't forget, we are always streaming live on YouTube. There you can watch us live 247. My name is Ayuba Ilya. Thank you for watching.
Thank you for joining us this morning. Do well to join us same time, same station tomorrow. My name is Stella Iyaji. For now, do have a very pleasant day.